for presentation on novel blood bag technology to enhance quality and shelf life of stored blood. Dr. Praveen.
Good afternoon. Honorable Minister Dr. Jitendra Singh ji and Secretary DBT Dr. Rajesh Gokhla ji and all my colleagues at DBT and the delegates. And today I quickly summarize one of the new technology that we developed, that is novel blood bag technology to enhance the quality and shelf life of stored blood. And as you know, transfusion of healthy blood is a life-saving practice, and millions of people get transfused every year. And typically in India, 12 million units of the blood required annually, and we get more than 10 million units of the blood through donations. But despite of this scarcity, more than 1 million units, that is almost 5 lakhs liters of the blood discarded due to the decrease of the quality during the storage. That's why huge unmet need to develop the technologies to improve the quality of stored blood. And typically, according to the protocols, one can store the maximum allowed time for the storage of the blood is 42 days. But technically, up to 21 days of the stored blood is safe to transfuse, because after that the quality declines. And therefore, it is important to increase the quality during this storage time. And while storing the blood, there are cells die and they generate this compounds called damage associated molecular patterns, and these are including a DNA, nucleosomes and proteins and so on, and these are the dams go and attack the stored blood cells and they damage their quality. So and when you have these dams containing blood, if you transfuse to the patients, and that also leads to the severe clinical complications including internal damage and damage of the organs and so on. And that's why the various scientists across the world from last 2 decades have been trying to develop the technologies, and so far people have focused on developing various storage solutions, the preservative solutions to protect the stress from the for these storage cells. But this doesn't address actually problem causing dams, because so far no attempts have been made to remove these damage causing agents from the blood. That's why we thought of developing technologies to remove them. If you see all these molecules, these are a charged component, either they are positive charge or negative charge. That's why we systematically develop these polymer molecules which are having the complementary charges, which can be formulated into nanofibrous shield, which can develop as a new blood bags. And when you have these new blood bags, you can store this blood here, and even by treating 15 minutes from these blood bags, it can capture very efficiently all the charged molecules and release the only healthy cells. So due to that, we could able to show that we can increase the quality of shelf life significantly. Just to summarize that, when you have this dams associated whole stored blood, if you transfuse them, that can lead to immune system activation and further internal organ damage and so on. But what we have shown is when you have treat with this new blood bags, just before the transfusion or during the storage, we can completely prevent this immune system activation on all the transfusion related complications. So to summarize the key factors from these technologies, it is shown to be a very safe and robust and scalable technology. And this technology selectively removes only damage causing agents without damaging any stored RBCs and the blood cells. And also we have shown that by using these new blood bags, the old storage blood quality is as good as freshly collected blood. And also we could able to increase the shelf life of the stored blood more than 25%, and this is highly validated using robust preclinical animal models, and it's highly patent protected technology. And recently we also shown that this technology not only increase the quality of stored blood, but it also can increase the quality of stem cells as well. So after developing this technology to further commercialize this technology, from InStem we formed a spin-off company which is developing further to commercialize this technology. With that, I would like to stop, and I would like to thank all the DBT and the InStem for generous funding which enabled us to develop this technology. Thank you all.
Now I request Honorable Minister to launch this novel technology by push of button.
Yes.
So now I request Honorable Minister to address the gathering. Oh, yeah, please.
Honorable Minister for State, Science and Technology, Dr. Jitendra Singh ji, uh, others, dignitaries on the dais, Dr. Mohanty, Dr. Alka Sharma, Dr. Jyoti Lagwania, Dr. Praveen, and all the dignitaries of the dais. It's my real pleasure to have you, all of you here on very, very important occasion actually. So the two activities that we have showcased are very important areas of one for TB, which has been a major scourge in India for several decades now. And it's been a problem that government has been very, very highly focused on. And you must have recently seen Honorable Prime Minister also taking very important steps towards directions recently that he announced in Banaras. What Department of Biotechnology is also doing is enhancing the capacity and capability of how we will be able to identify drug resistance organisms in the clinics actually. And the classical method that is used is using microbiology based methods actually, which takes about 3 weeks time for you to identify whether you have a drug resistance bug and how to be able to identify it and how will you be able to treat them differently. This technology using genomics based method and combination of artificial intelligence and machine learning languages, this will allow you to actually identify this within 2 to 3 days. And this will therefore enhance the quality of life of individuals as we can very quickly start them on these drug resistance aspect, taking care of it. The second aspect that we have talked about is of Ayush, combining Ayush trials with this. You know, what is typically happening is that the lung infection in TB as it happens, one needs to recover the good quality of lungs so that your next future life is very hale and hearty. And therefore, Indian systems of medicine, in fact, have many of these important rasayanas that have been developed, which is useful to be able to clinically test and validate. And that is what we are going to do and identify and carry out this further. Finally, this wonderful technology that has been developed for storing blood for long period of time and also enhancing the quality of the blood. Because blood, as you know, is the real life, is very, very critical in human life and frontiers actually. And I think this technology has already been now filed for a patent. And in fact, he has a startup company that is actually going to take this POC studies to the future of the work. So I'm really grateful Honorable Minister took time, and under his guidance and leadership, we are doing this innovative solutions for healthcare towards people's lives and careers. And I hope we will make big impacts in future to come actually. And I think these, in another 6 to 8 months time, both of these technologies should move into the utility value and the societal values actually. Thank you very much, sir, for taking your time and coming over here and giving us your time. Thank you.
I request Honorable Minister to address the gathering. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know how many of you have realized that what also makes this afternoon of 27th a little special is that I am surrounded by two Rajeshes, both of them having made a mark on themselves, so I have to also use this opportunity to congratulate Rajesh Malhotra for his new assignment, and I'm glad that he's there with us. And of course, Rajesh Gokhale, besides being secretary, an eminent scientist in his own right. Now, when we look at this, I think it's in the three parts that we could actually understand it. The journey of tuberculosis management and prevention globally, also in the tropical countries. B, its relevance and our goals in the context of India or the Indian subcontinent. And C, the prioritization on the part of the government headed by Prime Minister Modi. So if you see the tuberculosis as such, we have had a very miraculous journey, which is actually, I think, also is tied with the journey of the management and therapeutic advances across the world. So beginning from times where we hardly had any drugs at our disposal, and most of the management and most of the diseases was happening through non-pharmacological methods, and therefore we had a huge big sanatoria or sanatorium, and they would be built into acres of lands with greenery all around, so that the treatment was allow the patient to have fresh air, and his mattresses would be kept in the sunlight so that they would get de-sterilized. So all those methods, and then God forbid if he got one of those complications which Rajesh was referring to, if he got fibrosis in the course of disease or the lung went off, then maybe he could also meet a mortality, and the consequence would not be so. In 1950s, early 50s, we got streptomycin, which is known as the first line of drug. And then, of course, the second line, rifampicin, pyrazimide, all these things. And almost we had been able to get over this malaise of infectious disease. But then suddenly, I think the setback happened with the advent of HIV and other things. And at least in the West, nobody knew about all these diseases. In fact, many of their researchers came over to India. Though the tuberculosis bacteria had been discovered by a Westerner, Robert Cox, but the research was mostly done by their researchers in India, because the patient material was available here. The bacteria was operating more in these countries. But and unless HIV happened, and then they also started experiencing. I think gradually we got over that phase. We gradually moved on to the communicable, from the communicable to the non-communicable diseases like metabolic disorders, cardiac diseases, diabetes mellitus, etc. But suddenly this setback happened, partly with HIV and partly with the COVID now. So, and for India, the special challenge, the second part I'm saying from the context of India, that India was always known to be the hub of the tropical diseases and the infectious diseases. In fact, when we didn't have much of the prevalence of these more sophisticated diseases like the lifestyle disorders like the coronary disease, etc. So when we started happening, some of the Western commentators said that India has now started acquiring diseases of the civilized. So they were known as the diseases of civilized because these were the diseases of which actually emanated out of lack of hygiene or too much of population. So now having got back into this, again I think the onus to a great extent and also an opportunity to a great extent lies with India to prepare the regimens and to make the way forward for the rest of the world to follow. And to that extent, we have to thank Honorable Prime Minister. TB eradication goals laid down the world over are 2030. He has set for us the goal of 2025. And I'm sure we would be able to show the way as we've done in the vaccine story, which also emanated from the same department. Also because Prime Minister himself has been giving a high priority to healthcare, particularly after COVID, a lot of emphasis on preventive healthcare. And in his Varanasi speech the other day, he was referring to an incident when in Ahmedabad, Mahatma Gandhi came to inaugurate the leprosy hospital, and he said, I am waiting for the day when this hospital would be locked. And it did get locked in 2007 when Mr. Modi was the Chief Minister. So I think the ideal goal would be when we don't need to have tuberculosis hospitals. Like for example, many of these sanatoriums have now been closed down. Almost 70% of the sanatoriums which existed in 1940s are now closed down. Incidentally, I had my internship in one of the best sanatoriums in Asia, the Tabram Sanatorium, which is said to be. But now since we have this new armamentarium of drugs, so I'm sure with the new regimens and also now the importance of the program which was being mentioned and which was launched just now, the program called INTGS, Indian Tuberculosis Genome Surveillance. So we are now also graduating to more sophisticated methodology. Earlier it was mostly microbiology based, now we'll have more specificity, also saving of time, and we would be able to achieve the goals in a shorter span of time. The other program which is also driven from the same department is the data-driven research to eradicate tuberculosis. And then of course the other part, as Rajesh was mentioning, our MOU with Ayush. The program is going to be launched formally and jointly by the two ministries, the two departments. I think now that we are into a phase of integrated holistic healthcare, and the lesson has been taught most seriously and forcefully than by COVID than none else. Earlier on, there used to be some skepticism among different systems of medicine, particularly the allopathic medicine didn't think much about the indigenous medicine. But you saw in COVID, everybody was looking for booster drugs or immunity boosters among the Indian, of the Indian origin, if at all possible. So certainly in drugs like tuberculosis, or in the disorders like tuberculosis, where building of immunity and particularly building of the lung capacities has a great part and a great role in shortening the course of treatment. And therein come the traditional Indian methods, the yoga asanas, which train you for deep breathing, long breathing, lung expansion, etc. So I'm sure by combining all the three, we will be setting up a new course of regimen for the rest of the world also, because they may not be so much familiar with that. And finally, the blood part, of course, which was now is the new technology, back technology, and many a time, I think this also goes hand in hand, because nowadays in the age of sophistication, the commonest causes of anemia in the middle class are kidney failures, because the hemoglobin generation reduces. But in diseases like tuberculosis, it's because of the lack of nutrition, because there's lots of loss of appetite. In one of the slides I was noticing, you mentioned cachexia, which is nothing but loss of appetite, and it becomes all bone and flesh. And therein again, blood transfusion has a role. So I'm glad that both the technologies are being launched together. They will supplement each other, superimpose each other, and at the same time also aligning them or synergizing them with Ayurveda, Yoga and other methods. So we are going to set a roadway or a headway for the others as well to follow. I congratulate Rajesh Gokhale and his team, and we look forward to have a joint launching with the Ayush Ministry very soon. Thank you, Mr. Mohta.
Thank you, Ji. Thank you, sir. I request some media persons to ask a question, raise a number plate so that I can call them. 100.
My name is Rekha Dikshit, and this is my question to Mr. Praveen Vimula. You mentioned this new technology for enhancing the life of blood. What exactly is this? Do you have some molecules inside that do the job, or can you just give us a little more details?
Yeah, so this bag is made up with the polymers, and these polymers have a charged components. So all the damage causing agents which produced by blood cells during the storage, so this bag captures them, so that like they will not go and attack other blood cells to damage them. So that's how it's selectively removing these damage causing agents. That's how it prevents all the further damage and increase the quality. No, it's not filtration based. It's like you can just incubate on them. What it does, it captures only the damage causing agent, but it doesn't hold any or attach any cells on it. Because when you filter it, we might lose the cell count we loses. So in this case, we don't see any cell loss at all. So that's why we avoided the filtration technology. It's just the incubation technology. Yeah.
Sagar.
Can the blood, your 42-day-old blood, be used for transfusion, or is the blood life increased further?
Yeah, so with right now with our data, what's suggesting is even 42 days stored blood, the quality of that by using this technology is as good as freshly collected blood. So because we are removing all the damage causing agents, so it is as good as fresh blood. And in addition that the shelf life also from 42 days it can be increased to 51 days now, 25% more we can increase.
Next, Roshan.
I think what Rekha was trying to ask here, and I'm glad that you made it clear. It's not that they are adding any ingredients into the blood, which she meant. It's just that it's preservation through storage. the storage method.
That's absolutely right.
Roshan.
सर मेरा सवाल है कि जो ये आपने सिस्टम शुरू किया है उसमें जो ब्लड ट्रांसफ्यूजन का रिस्क फैक्टर है वो कितना कम हुआ है, क्योंकि अभी भी ऐसी खबरें आती हैं कि ट्रांसफ्यूजन से और जो तमाम बीमारियां हैं वो फैल जाती हैं.
Yeah, so when we have the old stored blood transfuse, when you transfuse them, and it causes your entire immune system gets activated. So that leads to internal organ damage and especially like patients if already have other comorbidities, if they are suffering immunocompromised patients and all. So with this one, like with this technology, like since we are removing entire this damage causing agents, and only red blood cells only will be get transfused. Because of that, we can avoid all the systemic inflammation, systemic immune system activation complication, completely prevented. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dr. Gokul, Dr. Mohanty, can you please explain how does this TB genome sequencing project will help clinically? Not every patient's blood will be checked through this, like, so how does it help a doctor treating the patient?
So see, when there is a, let us say, resistance to isoniazid, there are mutations in CAT-G genome. Like in the CAT-G gene, there are mutations. And with a lot of data, if this is established, and there are many other mutations, if we can establish that this is the genomic signature of resistance to this drug, you do not have to wait to do a microbiology-based test to conclude. It can be.
I think one of the biggest challenges here is what is known as a multi-drug resistant tuberculosis, MDR. So there comes a stage in case of certain patients, all the options fail. So if you are able to detect at an early stage what precisely is the mutated form which is affecting, and you are able to actually address it in the early stage, you might be able to get better results and better prognosis. So that is the improvement.
Yeah.
You want to add? Yeah.
So I think, so for example, अभी इंसाकॉक की जैसे एक्टिविटीज़ हैं, आप लोग कोविड वेरिएंट्स की बात करते रहते हैं एक्चुअली कि स्पाइक म्यूटेशंस हैं और ये है. इसी तरह से यू कैन आइडेंटिफाई बिकॉज द जीनोम सीक्वेंस ऑफ माइकोबैक्टीरियम ट्यूबरकुलोसिस इज 4 MB, 4 मेगा बेस एक्चुअली. और जो कोविड का जो है 30 KB जीनोम सीक्वेंस है उसका एक्चुअली. सो टीबी जीनोम में बहुत सारे नए म्यूटेशंस एक्यूमुलेट हो जाते हैं, एंड दीज म्यूटेशंस देन आर अट्रीब्यूटेड टू एंटीबायोटिक रेजिस्टेंस. और अभी जो नॉर्मली माइक्रोबायोलॉजी मेथड्स यूज करते हैं तो 4 मेन ड्रग्स के अगेंस्ट ही माइक्रोबायोलॉजिकली टेस्ट करते हैं. बट अभी टीबी के लिए टोटल ऑफ 14 ड्रग्स अवेलेबल है, एंड देयरफॉर वन कैन जीनोम सीक्वेंस करने से आप आइडेंटिफाई कर पाएंगे कि कौन से वेरिएंट्स हैं और किसके म्यूटेशंस अवेलेबल हैं. और इस म्यूटेशन से तो आप वो ड्रग का इस्तेमाल मत करिएगा, दूसरे ड्रग्स दीजिएगा. So this is why the technology what you will use is he will be prompted by saying that he will send the sample for genome sequencing, and then the genome sequencing data will immediately tell you what is the outcome of it actually.
नहीं ये सभी लैब्स में आ जाता है फिर बाद में. जैसे अभी जो ये कह रहे हैं, पहले क्या करते हैं, ड्रग सेंसिटिविटी टेस्ट करते हो, डिस्क के ऊपर लगा के देखना. इसमें जीनोम सीक्वेंसिंग मच मोर स्पेसिफिक, मच मोर सोफिस्टिकेटेड, एंड covers a wider range of drugs, isn't it?
So obviously path labs, I mean path lab की जरूरत नहीं पड़ेगी, जैसे genome sequencing जैसा अभी चल रहा है. So normally maybe you want to add.
Actually, there is a change in the sequencing technology also. Like currently, if you are using short-read Illumina, you have to use more expensive devices. But there are long-read sequencing with nanopore and all. So these are almost like handheld devices. With that, a sequencing can be done much easier, even directly at the clinic. But of course, it requires certain developments. And one more development which has to come is, can you directly take DNA from the sputum and sequence without culturing the bacteria? So all these things, when this is going in that direction. So that is where the time will be shortened very dramatically. Like you don't even need to culture.
More specific also.
Yeah.
even your DNA is a better substitute to that conventional sputum. Because sputum sometimes people will spit out and it will be negative because it doesn't come from underneath. So,
Any other question? Yeah, please.
I'm Rohini from Down to Earth. So I wanted to understand if you'd be using the sequencing data to design new drugs or vaccines or anything like that.
Yeah, it can in principle be used like if you understand on which gene the mutation is happening, or is it happening in a flux pump, or it is happening in some non-coding region, potentially it can help you to understand actually what is the molecular basis of drug resistance, and using that there are publications, these are not clinic examples, people have able to design resistance breaking compounds. That bacteria was resistant to a particular drug. They figured out where is the mutation. This work has been published in Science also. They could design a molecule, then that same bacteria was now susceptible to this new molecule. So but that would require other laboratory experiments and other details, and all these data will be available to people, and even the laboratories who are engaged in genomics, molecular biology work or TB research, they will be able to use this data. It can be also better correlated with the clinical information. So like the final website that which Honorable Minister inaugurated, that portal, it is also going to have clinical details of the samples, like all that. So that is where it will definitely help in this thing.
So do you have a timeline on how you're going to scale it up and all that?
So the timeline with what is proposed is for this 30,000, it is proposed like within 2 years, but what we estimated from the pilot phase, we should be able to do it in 1 year also. We can do now with the current, even this with these 2 institutes what we standardized, and of course currently we did the manual extraction of DNA, we are getting automated extraction. With that you would be able to easily do 500 this thing sequences per week, and this we can scale it down to this one. This is one is CCMB and NIBMG. Dr. Sagar Sen Gupta is the director, he is there, and CCMB is the other laboratories doing sequencing. And NII would also, we have now long read based, nanopore based sequencer, but once we get we are also going to get the short read, we would also join in this project.
Any other question?
and actually we are mostly confining ourselves, because that happens instinctively, to pulmonary tuberculosis. Tuberculosis as such is an infection which can affect any other organ as well, except perhaps the liver, maybe not. Your spleen, of course, doesn't get affected. We could have nodes. So